given this perfect storm of human error, mistakes, and miscommunications by all involved that day, the evidence did not indicate criminal conduct by police.
Just a daughter, she was a sister. She has several sisters and one brother. She was an aunt. She has 9 nieces and nephews whose ages range from 3 to 17. And my God, do they miss her so much. It's unfortunate, and I think that the key word to remember here is the inability to de-escalate the situation. The fact that the situation escalated in such a way that we have a young lady who was merely on her way to get groceries. On her way to get groceries to stock her refrigerator. On a Friday afternoon, she ends up jailed. She ends up dying in police custody. We are 3 weeks out from Sandra's death. We are a week out from burying her. And we still don't know what happened to her. And so I think the larger conversation is around the treatment of humans and American citizens in terms of their interfacing with law enforcement.
Excuse me, we have time for one more question.
What would you say to the trooper if you could talk to him?
Oh, that's a phenomenal question. What were you thinking? And shame on you.
Can I ask one more chance to clarify something? You guys are so brave and strong to talk to us. I appreciate it. Some of the questions people say on the street, and they wonder, why was she, the question is, why was she in jail that long for such a minor issue? And then people will say, well, why wasn't her bail paid for? What's the answer to that? I just want to let you guys.
I don't have an answer for you because that was the last question.
It's a good question. It's a good question.
I'm going to back out.
It's a good question.
Yes, it's all.
Go ahead and answer.
It's a good question, and I think it's a fair question. And the response to that is there was a communication issue. The jail. And one of the things that we have a primary concern about, yes, she called us on Saturday, informed us of the bail. We told her that we would take care of it expeditiously. And I will tell you, based off of the way that this family communicates, we never heard from Sandy after that. That's a cause for concern for us. We couldn't get in contact with her. We had the money, just so we're clear. After we spoke with her and talked as a family, we got it together expecting to get a phone call. And the next phone call that we did receive was that she was dead from an alleged suicide hanging in her jail cell. Okay?
They shot somebody.
Who did?
Why? The police.
When?
I don't know, but I walked across the line because I'm Australian and Australians aren't fearful of fuck all. I walked across the line and the police came at me, and do you know what the police said to me?
What?
I said to them, hold on, these guys' mate just got shot. And the police just said to me, yeah, we shot him.
Damn.
And I'm thinking, because I'm from Australia, right? I'm thinking, what the fuck? Why the fuck would you shoot anybody? Because you've got mace and you've got tasers.
Okay? He was making a phone call to his mother. He got some bad news. He was crying. He went back to his spot to spange for food for his freaking dog. Okay? And the bouncer said he wasn't allowed to be there. He's an ex-Marine. He's allowed to be wherever the fuck he wants to be.
Say that! Say that!
He was standing there with pride, and he said, I can stand where I want.
Serve this country!
And the man fought with him. And you know what? Some other source, I know a lot of people here, man. Another source told me that before this whole incident, a cop was seen clearing Windward out. Clearing the street. Before the incident. A little fishy, okay? Now, he gets into an altercation with the bouncer, and miraculously the cop shows up on time. With his gun. And he asks for his ID. And Brennan said, I don't need to give you my ID. The cop presses him with the gun and asks again. and he says, I don't want any problems. And he goes to reach for his ID. The cop proceeds then to shoot him. He shot him, and the report would say, and I will go on paper with this. The report will say that the cop shot him, and it ricocheted and hit his leg, and he shot him again out of anger, and he went down. I don't believe that for one freaking second. You know why? Because the architectural structure of those buildings right there, there's no indication of curvature. It's forensics 101, people. If a cop is holding his gun like this, at shoulder level, looking at you, there's no possible way in hell that shooting him, it would ricochet and hit his leg below his waist.
Magic bullet!
That's impossible. What happened was he shot him, and he went down, and he was dying already, bleeding out. And the cop shot him again, looking over him. It was an execution, and the bullet ricocheted after hitting his body and hit up and hit a wall, and it hit his leg. And that's the only way it happened. This was a murder. And this happens every day here in this country.
Release the video!
Now, been forced to raise a son who is going to remember what happened to his father that I can't take away from him. He is at an age of understanding. I hurt more for him and his loss. As a parent, one of the greatest fears is to see your child hurt and knowing there's nothing you can do about it. What I saw last night from the real citizens of Baton Rouge will forever warm my heart. We are a complete community of individuals who will carry this burden and also stand together to ensure that this event will not go unjustice.
That's right.
It will not go unnoticed, especially for the future.
No justice, no peace.
I, for one, will not rest or not allow him to be swept in the dirt.
The findings of our comprehensive, thorough, and independent investigation, coupled with the medical examiner's determination that Mr. Gray's death was a homicide, which we received today, has led us to believe that we have probable cause to file criminal charges. The statement of probable cause is as follows. Mr. Gray indicated that he could not breathe and requested an inhaler to no avail, while Officer Nero physically held him down against his will until a BPD wagon arrived to transport Mr. Gray. Lieutenant Rice, Officer Miller, and Officer Nero failed to establish probable cause for Mr. Gray's arrest as no crime had been committed by Mr. Gray. Accordingly, Lieutenant Rice, Officer Miller, and Officer Nero illegally arrested Mr. Gray. Following transport from Baker Street, Mr. Gray suffered a severe and critical neck injury as a result of being handcuffed, shackled by his feet, and unrestrained inside of the BPD wagon. From Baker Street, Officer Goodson proceeded to the vicinity of Mosher Street and Fremont Avenue, where he subsequently parked the wagon and proceeded to the back of the wagon in order to observe Mr. Gray. Despite stopping for the purpose of checking on Mr. Gray's condition, at no point did he seek nor did he render any medical assistance for Mr. Gray. Officer Goodson returned to his driver's seat and proceeded toward the central booking and intake facility with Mr. Gray still unsecured by a seatbelt, contrary to a BPD general order.
The top cop charged in Freddie Gray's death, acquitted. The highest-ranking Baltimore cop on trial for the death of Freddie Gray cleared of all charges Monday. Lieutenant Brian Rice acquitted of manslaughter, reckless endangerment, and misconduct in office. The decisions handed down by a judge after Rice waived his right for a jury trial. The 42-year-old cop is the fourth of 6 officers to be tried for Gray's death in April of 2015 from spinal injuries suffered in a police van. But so far, not a single conviction. 2 officers, including the van's driver, were acquitted, with a third facing a retrial after a deadlocked jury. Rice's acquittal a particularly stinging setback for prosecutors. As the cop in charge, he was the one who ordered officers to chase down and arrest Gray when the 25-year-old African-American suddenly fled upon seeing police in a high-crime area. It was also Rice who shackled Gray's legs and decided not to seatbelt him as he was loaded into the van. But defense lawyers argued Rice made a correct split-second decision while Gray was being combative and a hostile crowd looked on. Gray's death touched off intense rioting in Baltimore, adding fuel to the Black Lives Matter movement. With the remaining 2 officers involved set to be tried in the coming months, Rice's acquittal raises questions of whether the state should move forward or dismiss their cases.
It is for observers to use the untimely death of Freddie Carlos Gray Jr. as a barometer of our nation's progress on police brutality. My professional role in this matter is plain: to seek justice on behalf of an innocent 25-year-old man who was unreasonably taken into custody after fleeing in his neighborhood, which just happens to be a high-crime neighborhood, and had his spine partially severed in the back of a Baltimore police wagon. The decision to prosecute 6 police officers was not and has never been an indictment on the entire Baltimore Police Department. Although some have tried to invalidate my family's long-standing service as public officers, I know firsthand the sacrifices, the dedication, the commitment it takes to protect and serve our communities. For those that believe that I'm anti-police, it's simply not the case. I'm anti-police brutality, and I need not remind you that the only loss and the greatest loss in all of this was that of Freddie Gray's life. We do not believe that Freddie Gray killed himself. We stand by the medical examiner's determination that Freddie Gray's death was a homicide. However, after much thought and prayer, it has become clear to me that without being able to work with an independent investigatory agency from the very start, without having a say in the election of whether our cases proceed in front of a judge or a jury, without communal oversight of policing in this community, without real substantive reforms to the current criminal justice system, we could try this case 100 times and cases just like it, and we would still end up with the same result.
A new documentary casts further doubt on the claims that a Ferguson, Missouri police officer acted in self-defense when he shot and killed 18-year-old Michael Brown in August of 2014. After the killing, Ferguson's police department released video footage showing what officers said was Michael Brown shoplifting a box of cigarillos from a convenience store and pushing a clerk who confronted him. The video was unrelated to Brown's killing later that day, but police used it to portray Michael Brown as violent. Previously unreleased video, revealed Saturday at the premiere of the documentary Stranger Fruit, shows Michael Brown entering the same convenience store the night before his death.
St. Louis County has written documentation that we found which shows they saw the 1:13 a.m. videotape, but they leave out what really happened that night in their report. Mike traded the store a little bag of weed and got 2 boxes of cigarillos in return. He left his items at the store and he went back the next day to pick them up. Mike did not rob the store.
That they are the only people who have heard and examined every witness and every piece of evidence. They discussed and debated the evidence among themselves before arriving at their collective decision. After their exhaustive review of the evidence, the grand jury deliberated over 2 days, making their final decision. They determined that no probable cause exists to file any charge against Officer Wilson and returned a no true bill on each of the 5 indictments.
Justice!
It's
gonna be okay.
Well, you could.
We gonna get justice! We gonna get justice!
The legacy to Michael Brown Jr. should be that instead of just striving to make a lot of noise, we strive to make a difference. And that difference will be changing this system where the police who are supposed to protect and serve us continue to kill our members in our community. And we have to really address this issue as one that, what scenario could we offer where they finally indict police officers for killing us? Isn't that the real question?
And the multiple shootings in the back while he's laying down on the no. And then when the mom comes, they don't try and console her or let her know what's going on with her baby.
I got pushed on the ground in the process of trying to find out what happened to my son.
Demanded answers about why Ford was first arrested.
They out here killing everybody. They killing the population, man.
Tonight, we're getting our first look at the LAPD's official report. 2 officers first spotted Ford last August in a known gang neighborhood with hands in his pocket. They try and talk with him, and he walks away. They believe he's possibly discarding narcotics. When they try to handcuff him, Ford fights back and goes for the officer's gun. Then the officers shoot and kill Ford.
This is a tragedy for all involved.
The police commission says both officers were at fault in drawing their weapons. One of the officers also employed the wrong tactics.
The use of force by one police officer, too, was administrative disapproval.
The board did not follow Chief Charlie Beck's recommendation that the shooting was justified. Afterwards, Beck says, quote, "I respect the process and the decision made in this matter."
System worked the way it's supposed to, with impartial civilians investigating and coming to conclusions that we saw.
LA Mayor Eric Garcetti met with Ford's family after the decision was announced.
I spoke to her just as a parent. And look, I said to her, there's nothing, no matter what was decided today, that can ever bring back your son.
District Attorney Jackie Lacey will now determine whether to pursue criminal charges.
District Attorney Jackie Lacey, we haven't heard from you. Where are you? We need to hear from you. The investigation is
tonight over the LA County DA's decision not to charge 2 officers in the shooting death of Ezel Ford.
CBS 2's Dave Lopez has his mother's reaction as well as Mayor Eric Garcetti's.
I'm hurt. I'm angered.
The mother of Ezel Ford reacting to the news that the 2 LAPD officers who shot and killed her son in August 2014 will not face criminal charges.
These officers are going sky-free. They're getting away with murder.
It was not a close call.
District Attorney Jackie Lacey went on to explain that in their investigation, officers Charlton Wampler and Antonio Villegas acted, quote, legally and in self-defense.
Because we believe we had evidence showing that Mr. Ford was struggling with the officer over possession of that gun.
You running? You running?
The shooting of the 25-year-old Ford, who was mentally challenged, sparked controversy in the community and especially at the police commission meetings. Mrs. Ford addressed the police commission last year, begging for justice.
Ezel had the thought process of an 8 or a 10-year-old. He was a baby.
The DA concluded that Ford, after being stopped for questioning, got into a wrestling match with the 2 officers and reached for the gun of one of the officers. And that's when the shooting occurred.
I don't believe anybody shot. But the amount of time that it took for the DA to reach this decision is just mind-boggling.
This investigation lasted nearly 2.5 years. And this comment from Mayor Eric Garcetti, quote, "I accept the decision made by the district attorney, but rededicate my administration to the search for better ways to protect the safety of all."
There will be no justice. He will not see justice. There will be no justice for Ezel.
It was August 2014. 25-year-old Ezel Ford was shot and killed by LA police. Since then, there have been several investigations, including the one by the DA's office, whether to prosecute the 2 officers involved.
We rejected the case for filing of homicide charges against Officer Wampler and Villegas. The evidence supported a belief that we have that this, and a conclusion that we've made, that this shooting was made in self-defense.
A year later, the grand jury in Staten Island, as we expected, came back with no bill. The prosecutor has now run and won for Congress. The family is given a settlement, but Eric Garner and the community has not received justice. Money is not justice. Money is a recognition of the loss of the family, but it does not deal with the criminal and other wrong done to this family and other families.
We would like to also get the city to continue to support us as we rally and march to continue for justice for my husband, to try to get the prosecutors to prosecute these officers. Well, they deserve to be prosecuted. They treated my husband like an animal, and I think that they give animals more respect than they give humans.
People, we walking up and down the street, they're saying congratulations. Don't congratulate us. This is not a victory. The victory will come when we get justice. Then we want to have a victory party. We're asking the federal government, which we've been asking them for a whole year, to come and take the Eric Garner's case. Because, as you know, at the grand jury, we didn't receive justice. Even though my son said he couldn't breathe 11 times. 11 times he said he couldn't breathe. And they chose not to indict. Where is the justice?
For remorse would have been when my husband was yelling to breathe. That would have been the time for him to show some type of remorse or some type of care for another human being's life. When he was screaming 11 times that he can't breathe. So there's nothing that him or his prayers or anything else would make me feel any different. No, I don't accept his apology. No, I could care less about his condolences. No, I could care less. He's still working. He's still getting a paycheck. He's still feeding his kids. And my husband is 6 feet under. And I'm looking for a way to feed my kids now.
Anyone else?
And I will continue to say murdered, because where in this planet do you tell the truth and you be honest and you still be murdered by the police of Minnesota while you have your seatbelt on and you're in a company with a woman and a child? My son would never jeopardize anyone else's life by trying to pull a gun on an officer and the gun was not fire ready. These are some of the facts that came out in the trial, and I am so very, 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 very disappointed in the system here in the state of Minnesota, because nowhere in the world do you die from being honest and telling the truth. The system continues to fail black people, and they will continue to fail you all. Like I said, because this happened with Orlando, when they get done with us, they coming from you, for you, for you, and all your interracial children. Y'all are next, and you'll be standing up here fighting for justice just as well as I am. I am so disappointed in the state of Minnesota. My son loved this state. He had one tattoo on his body, and it was of the Twin Cities, the state of Minnesota with TC on it. My son loved this city, and this city killed my son, and the murderer gets away. People have died for us to have these rights, and now we're devolving. We're going back down to 1969. Damn! What is it gonna take? I'm mad as hell right now. Yes, I am. My firstborn one son died here in Minnesota.
We are all Akai Gurley. We are all Eric Gardner. We are all Maya Hall. We are all Tamir Rice. We are all Michael Brown. One day it can be your loved one, and you will be the one that's fighting for justice. You will be the one fighting for equality. You will be the one fighting for accountability by these racist cops. I don't care if it was a black, a brown, or a white man that shot and murdered my nephew. What my family wants is accountability. What my sister wants is for the person, the perpetrator that took her her child's life to be held accountable. Akai Gurley was a father. Akai Gurley was a son, a nephew, a brother. Akai Gurley was a partner. Had Peter Laird not pulled his service revolver, Akai Gurley would have been alive today. So come Tuesday afternoon at 2:30, we are back to Brooklyn Supreme Court. And I'm asking everyone here to stand in solidarity with the family, because
this is true civilian oversight power over the police. We need an independent prosecutor to look into these incidents. We also found out from the district attorney's office that they have a memorandum of understanding with every 57 police departments in LA County that they don't investigate a single use of force until the police departments have exhausted their investigation. That means unlike the Carolinas, unlike Baltimore, 6 months to a year later, they get a box of information for the police, and then they decide, oh, well, looks like it was a justifiable shooting. We know that's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. That's why today is so important, because this is the community rising up, telling our own truth, the only truth, what really is happening in our neighborhoods. Everybody that has a coffin, lift your coffin up. This is just a few of the 621 people that have been killed since 2000. I just want to tell you a little bit about who they are, and then we're going to hand it over to some other folks. One is that we know that LA County is only 9% African American, but 28% of the people getting killed by law enforcement are black. We know that LA County is only 47% Latino, but 53% of the people getting killed by law enforcement are Latino. We know that homeless people, that people without housing are regularly targeted and killed by the police. We know that people with mental conditions, where there's plenty of money, millions and millions of dollars a year spent to have mental health teams to come out to those incidents, are never called, and law enforcement is killing many people who have mental conditions. We know that at least 7 cases, law enforcement came to the scene where families called people in because someone was threatening to commit suicide, and law enforcement killed the person they were there to protect. We're saying no more! No more! No more! No
That standard has given so much leeway to police officers in this country, and so you see police officers who are getting away with shooting unarmed people despite those folks having their hands up, despite those folks clearly being in a submission posture. We need a more independent system that allows everyday citizens to really participate in the prosecution of police officers. Because absent that, it's really kind of the fox guarding the hen house. And that doesn't create any kind of disincentive or punishment for police officers who are causing this harm. So those millions of dollars could be spent to address homelessness and mental health issues and drug use and abuse. And instead, cities are paying millions of dollars to pay for police killings.